Chapter 13, Conflict and Negotiation. We all experience conflict. So definition, anytime things aren't matching. Incompatible goals, attitudes, emotions, behavior that causes the disagreement. There's good conflict, functional conflict. Dysfunctional conflict, not good conflict, where it can be destructive. When you look at consequences with conflict, there can be positive consequences, resulting in motivating change, for example, or it can have negative consequence. And one of the biggest things is just wasting time and resources. Okay, when you think about diagnosing conflict, these are a series of questions to ask what the situation you're in and what that conflict is. And the indication here is if you're answering yes, then you probably have dysfunctional and maybe not positive conflict. When you think about it, you've got structural factors, the organization, goal differences, authority relationships. Then you have people, human nature, perceptions, personalities. Sometimes they will butt up against and cause the conflict. Conflict is different and seen different through different cultures. These are those 5 cultural dimensions of Hofstede, and they can all come into play with conflict. What kind of conflict? Interorganizational, when you're looking at conflict between organizations. Intergroup, between groups or teams. Intra, internal, within a group or team. Interpersonal, between 2 or more people. And then intrapersonal, something that we have like internal conflict. So if you look at an organization and those outside of an organization, and if you add to this outside of work in general, there are all sorts of roles. You have outside the organization, inside, all those effect. So intrapersonal conflict. So this is within yourself. You have that conflict among the multiple roles in an individual's life. Wife, mother, employee, student. Intra-role. Within one role, there's all sorts of conflicts. And the person role, conflict between a role and your values. Ethic concerns. So think about, how do you handle trying to resolve intrapersonal conflict? Find jobs that fit your values, your systems. Understand, clarify expectations. Political skills, as we learned in the prior chapter. Some of the social skills to buffer those negative effects of stress conflict. Different power networks, 3 of them, equal versus equal, high versus low, and high versus middle versus low. And they just tend to be the different powers networks that exist. So if I look at the 3, equal versus equal, competing, high versus low, your boss to employees, and middle managers that both have conflict both above and below them. Defense mechanisms. I'm sure there's not anybody that can't find at least one of these that we do. It's the different things we do to handle and avoid that conflict. Many different than others. managing conflict, competitive strategies, win-lose, cooperative, and I'm sure you must have heard this in many other places than this class about win-win, how you're looking for those resolutions that are a win-win. So when you look at those win-lose versus win-wins, in competitive, you're either going to have everybody losing or one or the other. Cooperative, hopefully, can get to a result of a win-win-win. What are some ineffective techniques? Doing nothing is a form of a decision. Secrecy, hiding that conflict. Sending it all over, trying to buy time to not have to deal with it. Set up a procedure that is just too costly and too risky to use, so that's not going to resolve a conflict. And something I'm sure that happens, label or discredit an opponent. When you think about political elections, there's always a debate about that. Some effective techniques, subordinate goals. Look for a goal that's bigger than both of the groups that are having the conflict and work towards that. Provide more resources if that's part of the conflict. Moving people so that they possibly, I find the word fire interesting here, but moving them out of a situation that may be the right thing for everybody. Look at a different type of structure, a cross-functional team. And then eventually putting it on the table and try to find a mutual beneficial solution. Negotiating can be useful. So you're negotiating to try to get to a point of resolution or compromise. Some approaches, distributive bargaining and integrative negotiation. This is an interesting grid. On your x-axis you have cooperativeness, and on your y-axis you have assertiveness. So you basically have a grid that indicates different types of conflict management styles. If you look at the very bottom, avoiding, to the left, you have unassertive and uncooperative. So not very assertive and not going to agree, so we're going to avoid everything. You go to the opposite side of the x-axis to accommodating. You have that great cooperation, but you're not very assertive, you're accommodating. And then you can see the other ones fit those portions on that grid. So avoiding, you're staying away. Accommodating, you're kind of giving up or showing more concern. Competing, that's where you have a strength in that assertiveness, but maybe not very cooperative. Compromising, giving up a little on hopefully both sides. And collaborating, really trying to get something satisfactory based on discussion. Organizational views of conflict. If I look at all three of these, I'd hopefully want to be in the one to the right under positive, which shows it values diversity, seeks mutual benefit, empowers, and takes stocks. If you look at the other ones, they will all tend to reflect more of a negative aspects of dealing with conflict. So I want to create a conflict positive organization. I will value diversity. I will seek to go behind cooperative goals, empower employees, and then take stock to reward and success and learn from mistakes.